Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
Those who were presented to the Queen often found the experience discombobulating. Though it may have been the first time they had ever set eyes on her, they were often more familiar with her face than with their own. They knew it in profile, they knew it head-on. They had seen it refracted through the visions of countless artists and photographers. So to meet the Queen face-to-face was apt to make you feel giddy or woozy, as though a well-loved family portrait had suddenly sprung to life. America's First Lady Michelle Obama first met the Queen at Buckingham Palace in 2009. Sitting with the Queen, I had to will myself out of my own head, to stop processing the splendor of the setting and the paralysis I felt coming face-to-face with an honest-to-goodness icon, she wrote. I'd seen Her Majesty's face dozens of times before, in history books, on television, and on currency, but here she was in the flesh, looking at me intently and asking questions. A friend of mine, a magazine editor, was asked to one of the Queen's regular informal lunches for distinguished people from different walks of life. As he was ushered in, a senior courtier suggested that he might care to spend a penny. When he said he didn't think it necessary, the courtier advised him it was best to be on the safe side. One or two previous guests had had an accident upon being presented. The comic novelist Kingsley Amis was invited to one such lunch in 1975. He had been terrified for days about the unpremeditated fart or belch and was on a strict non-bean and onion diet. One of his oldest friends, Robert Conquest, gossiped sneakily to another, Philip Larkin. Amis's fear reignited itself 15 years later. Before going to Buckingham Palace to receive a knighthood, he grew so frightened of having an unspeakable incident in front of the Queen that, in the words of his son Martin, he had his doctor lay down a firewall of Imodium and there was some doubt, afterwards, whether he would ever again go to the toilet. Another eminent man of letters, sophisticated, posh, loosely Republican, accepted an invitation to one of the Queen's informal lunches with his usual worldly mix of curiosity and condescension. Over the course of his life, he had met Marlene Dietrich, Jackie Kennedy, Dame Rebecca West. Why on earth should he feel any different about meeting Her Majesty? But the moment the Queen arrived he turned to jelly. Suddenly I felt physically ill. My legs felt weak, my head swam and my mind went totally blank. So you're writing about such and such, said the Queen. I had no idea what I was writing about, or even if I was writing a book at all. All I could think of to say was, what a pretty brooch you're wearing, ma'am. So far as I can recall she was not wearing a brooch. Presumably she was used to such imbecility. I would not have believed that I could have reacted in such a way. Sometimes people would recognize in her not themselves, but a close relation, a mother, sister, aunt or grandmother. When I was a little boy we had a nanny who looked to me so much like the Queen that I was convinced that this was who she was, and that on her days off she would moonlight to pursue her job at the palace. Reading a newspaper story about the Queen's humdrum daily habits, the forthright Australian Republican Germaine Greer immediately thought of her own mother, and the two became melded in her mind. Her Majesty watches telly while she eats, and she eats, apparently, 5 times a day, just like an old lady in a care home. The Queen watches EastEnders and The Bill, when she could watch absolutely anything she chose, but she does not choose. Just like my mother, when people spoke of her, they spoke of themselves, and when they dreamt of her, they dreamt of themselves. It's like throwing a ball against a wall and catching it. The active participant does the catching and the throwing. The job of the wall is to remain so solid and still that the ball can keep bouncing back. Hillary Clinton recalled of a presidential visit to Buckingham Palace. The Queen wore a sparkling diamond tiara that caught the light as she nodded and laughed at Bill's stories. To some extent, this was both the Queen's talent and purpose, to radiate. Rob Halford, lead vocalist with Judas Priest, described a reception for the music business at Buckingham Palace in 2005. I said hello to Roger Daltrey and had a bit of a chit-chat with Brian.